mind is a wonderful servant but a terrible master. So when you learn how to rise above the mind, I'm going to give you some practices today. You want some specific practices on how to do this? Yes? Am I the most inspired person in the room? Just checking. Very inspired group. So I'm going to give you some practices because here's how the mind works. The mind works based on the law of association. So today I'm going to give you some practices to move from association to contemplation, and from contemplation to concentration, and from concentration to meditation. Sound good? Yes. Turn to your neighbor and say, that sounds good. So the mind works based on the law of association. See, this is an incredibly inspiring time right now to be alive because right now scientific discoveries are confirming what some of the greatest spiritual teachers and enlightened masters have been saying for centuries, which is that we live in a universe of infinite possibilities. And that this universe of infinite possibilities responds. It's all vibration. It's all frequency. So what's happening out here in your experience of reality is reflecting back to your own frequency. Well, guess what happens? When you elevate, when you change, everything shifts. Everything changes. You have that much power. So the law of association, so the mind thinks in terms of associative patterns. So something happens out here in what appears as objective reality, and your brain filters that based on associative patterns. Now, sometimes this is empowering. For example, if you have an experience of putting your hand on the stove and you get burned, that's good, associative, program that says don't do that in the future. But then it can get a little challenging when you have an experience like that great example yesterday where you're all fired up about Soul Train. Soul Train, you're a little kid, you're all stoked about your dances on Soul Train, and then in the midst of your inspiration, you're told to go to your room. And then all of a sudden, at the deeper levels of the subconscious mind, now you're not your mind, but you have a subconscious mind, patterns get embedded, programming sets, limiting beliefs. Well, maybe I'm not good enough to do that. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Emotions become repressed. I'm angry, but I'll just... And then these things kind of stay down there, right? Until something triggers you. Anybody here have people that push your buttons, maybe? Buttons! These get excited when somebody pushes your buttons. That means you're about to have an opportunity for a quantum breakthrough in your own evolution. Yes, because if something can push your buttons, then what's coming out of you is what's inside. It has nothing to do with anything outside of you. When you squeeze an orange, what do you get? You don't get juice, you get? Yes, thank you. You get orange juice. You get what's inside. Similarly, when you are squeezed by the pressures of what appears as external reality, when the river rises and you are squeezed, what's come out of you? What's inside? That's okay, no judgment. No judgment, all is good. It is just revealing something to you that is ready to be released so you step into the next level of your own evolution and our collective evolution together. Okay? So, what we're going to begin to do is when these things happen that push your buttons, you get curious. Repeat after me. Yeah, go like this. Come on, everybody. I'm going to show you some questions, too, that you can use to begin to blow the boundaries out of associative thinking that no longer serves you. Is that good? Things to put that brain in check, like a little brain floss. A little brain floss. You can step out of the brain, do a little floss. All will be good. Because if something happens in what appears as your experience of reality and it calls forth a disempowering state in you, it has nothing to do with that thing unless you experience a disempowering, I wouldn't even call it disempowering, unless you experience a state and it flows and it's gone. In other words, something may happen Something may happen that creates a state of fear. If you hear a loud noise, you may hear something and feel that. But you feel it, you flow it, and it's gone. But if someone gets stuck in that, it's not about that. It goes deeper. Here's an opportunity. We are blessed with an opportunity. Now, when you begin to release that, really see that, one thing you can do is you could rise above it. Here's a couple techniques. You can rise above it. You can float up. How easily can you float up out of your body right now into the ceiling and look down at someone that looks remarkably like you? You can see it from a different perspective. Another thing you can do is, when you have that experience of kind of like push your buttons, throw it up on a movie screen. And now you're over here, and you're looking at that person that looks remarkably like you, going through this experience. And you get, what else could this mean? And as you do that, you are in a resourceful, empowered space. Sometimes the release happens in stages, short stages. Sometimes it happens instantly. Sometimes it happens in stages. It will happen though. I'll share with you a story, the interesting aspects of associative thinking. I will never forget the first time I flew my parents out to go watch me do one of my sessions, this is my life's work, my purpose, my reason for being, to share. And I brought them into the audience, and they had never seen what I did. This was many years ago. And I flew them out to California, and I was doing an event very close here at the Long Beach Performing Arts Center, and there was 3,000 people in the room. And I brought them in, and they sat right up at the front, and they were there for the whole day. It was a full-day event, 3,000 people. And I was just so grateful, so blessed to be able, for the first time, to share with them my life's work. And then afterwards, I took them out to dinner. And I said to my mom, "So what'd you think?" And this is the first thing she said to me. She said, "Niurka, that was nice." Then she said to me, "You know what, honey? You're really good at this. You should get your teaching credential." That way you can teach elementary school and you get summers off. And I just observed myself as what used to be programming come up. Because all of a sudden this wave of associative thinking came up over just like I could see it. And then this story came in. But this time I wasn't in the story, I was watching the story, I was seeing the story. The story came in, and the story was something like this. Where were you all day? And I began to observe myself having thoughts that were no longer my thoughts. Having thoughts that were no longer my thoughts. It went something like this. Well, don't you understand? Don't you get who I am? Don't you get what I do? Don't you? Guess what? Can I tell you a secret? That you're making it up. You're making it up. So all of this story that was linked back to experiences in the past, if you don't understand me and don't you get me, and now I'm seeing it from a privileged perspective. Now I'm seeing it with enlightened eyes. Now I'm seeing it with an open heart. And now I'm seeing my mom and seeing that all she really wants is to love me. Not even once, that's all she does, is to love me in the best way she knows how. And then for her and her experiences, what an incredible blessing that would be if I had summers off. Gosh, you don't need to work so hard. Just meet a good, nice Christian man. That's all you gotta do. Teaching credentials would be a total space of love. So in that moment, I just came to the silent space between the notes. It's the space between the notes that makes the music. So I sat there in total love and just didn't say anything. Nothing was necessary. Now here's what happened though, is in that moment when that was said, the programming did come in, but it wasn't attached. Does that make sense? So in that observing of it, in that dissociation, you're able to see it. Because sometimes what happens when you begin to, when you remember the source and you move out of that, sometimes it happens, like I said, in stages where you may see it come up, the trigger comes up, but now you observe it. Now sometimes this, you may even see the trigger come up and you may just go with it anyways. You're like, oh, came up, screw it. You're conscious. You may do that, but not for long. And you go through that, and then the next time, you have a little bit more time right before, and then after a while, it may still come up, but it has no power. It's like another being. It's not even you. Then, when things come up, you handle it instantly and properly. I'll tell you another time it came up. Interesting. I just got back from 2 months in Bali. Sacred adventure. Very profound. I sat in meditation. I went deeper in my meditation than I had really ever gone. And one of the beauties of it is you expand your container, then you have more space for the universe to fill. A lot of people are praying. And then without that open, receptive vessel, the universe can't fill. So I went and just really expanded that container. And I'll tell you an interesting story about the associative thinking of the mind. I was doing a journey, or I was in the process of journey, where I was doing a lot of what they call mukamit. Mukamit means you sleep in temples. You go and you sleep in the temple. You go in, you pray, you bring offerings, you sleep in the temple. And by the way, I'm a linguist, part of my work. And I study how language affects the nervous system. And what's interesting to realize is that when you have a word for something, you actually are more able to call it into your experience of reality. For example, here in the English language, we don't have like a word specifically for sleeping in temples. Right? But when you have this word, it triggers that to begin to sift through infinite possibilities, and you begin to find things that are in alignment with what you are speaking. What you are speaking into existence, what you're declaring to the universe. One of the great things Michael says, which I love, is that in life you do not describe what you see, but rather you see what you describe. So you will see what you're describing in a universe of infinite possibilities. It's all available. So on my journey, we go to Nusa Penida, which is this little island off the coast of Bali. It's like no tourists go there because there's no hotels, and it's like in the eternal twilight. It's a very mystical, magical, amazing place. And we're going on this temple journey. And we get to the top, right at the full moon, we get to the top of one of the temples, and I actually take one of the girls that works with me, Samara, who's in the back. We're on the sacred adventure, and then we brought, like I said, all these offerings, and we're sleeping at the top of the temple, and it's cold. And because we were just kind of hiking, or we didn't take a lot of things, so as we're sleeping in the temple, like on the concrete floor, I was talking to one of the Menkus, which is one of the high priests, and we were in meditation, and then towards, halfway through the night, I said, I'm going to lay down and get a little bit of sleep. So cold. So I look at Samara, and she's laying down. She's got my sarongs over her, and she's kind of in fetal position. It's kind of cold. So I lay next to her, and I'm thinking, man, it's cold. I'm just going to back up next to her. Kind of stay warm. So I lay next to her, and I said, hey, Samara, will you back up? And I look over, and she moves like 6 inches in the opposite direction. I'm like, all right. So I say, hey, Samara, it's kind of cold up here. Would you back up? So she moves 6 other inches, again in the opposite direction. Now, all of a sudden, I start having a story come in. I'm like, what's the matter with her? We're on this temple. We're here to do God's work. I'm asking her to back up. She's moving away. This is all about love and connection. What's going on? It's cold. So then I said to her, Samara, I said, you got my sarong and everything. We're up here at the top. I said, the least you can do is just kind of back up. And the next thing I see is she